Hello fellow cyborgs and welcome to another Brontë binge video. This is my project of the year where I will read the 7 novels of the Brontë sisters, and this is the final novel video of the Brontë binge. I have a couple other items that I think I'll do Brontë binge videos on, but as far as the novels go, this is the final video. So today, as the title suggests, we are talking about Agnes Grey. And boy, was this a dud. Agnes Grey is Anne Brontë's first debut novel, and it follows Agnes Grey, who is a governess to a couple pretty horrible families, and that's pretty much the story. I had heard from other sources on BookTube that this was kind of a boring book and it wasn't a lot of people's favorites, and I was determined that I was not going to believe that of Agnes Grey, that if I could enjoy The Professor, which was weird, and Charlotte's first book that wasn't even considered for publication in her lifetime, then I would definitely get on with Agnes Grey. Anne wrote The Tenant of Wildfell Hall, which is one of the best Brontë books. How could this not be good? Well, I did not get on with this. I buddy read this with Acacia Ives and Sarai from Sarai Talks Books, and all of us were very underwhelmed. I don't believe that the plot itself is inherently boring, but I think the way that it was structured and presented just wasn't very entertaining. There are time jumps in this book where we skip 2 years because Agnes decides not to bore us with the 2 years of drudgery in her different governess positions. We alternate between large chunks of exposition where we get to hear all of the faults of the children that she is trying to govern, not seeing those faults unfold gradually as she discovered them, but getting them all dumped to us after she knows all of this about them. And then other scenes are told completely in dialogue about a ball that isn't important to the story and never really comes up again. I think apart from how this book, the plot was presented not working well for me or for the pacing, the other major thing was the characters were very flat and simplistic. The characters who are good and kind of boring. The characters who are bad have practically no redeeming qualities and change zero. There is no character growth from the beginning of this book to the end. Agnes does not really change as a character at all. She just adapts to different situations. To my knowledge, when Agnes Grey came out, many people didn't think that the negative things in here, the horrible children and horrible situation for Agnes, was at all possible or real. I do not believe that. I believe that there were situations like what Agnes had to go through, and even worse ones than what Agnes had to go through in the governorship area. But the way that it was presented, it was just, even though it was kind of awful, was still not very engaging. Some of these characters and the flaws of these characters are exaggerated almost to a laughable degree, and yet that comedy never comes up. It's always explained straight-faced and with disapproval from Agnes's perspective. Thinking about how other authors, even other Victorian authors, could have presented these awful children in a almost like comedically ridiculous way, where you're laughing at how awful these children can get, which might have been more engaging, but like I said, the way it's presented in here, it's completely straight, no humor whatsoever. For a book that's less than 200 pages, it took half the book for a semblance of a overarching plot to appear. Otherwise, it felt very episodic and like there was no true point to what we were being told. There was a lot of showing and not telling. We're told about how loving and wonderful Agnes's home life was, but at the very beginning of the book, all we truly see is them doubting her ability to be a governess. We just have to believe Agnes that her family is truly supportive and loving, because I didn't see a whole lot of it. I do, however, feel like there was a missed opportunity. There are multiple references to Agnes going home for Christmas or going home for the summer holiday while she's working as a governess, and I feel like this would have been such a lovely opportunity for us to see the family dynamic between Agnes and her family, get some cozy, wonderful Christmas scenes, and hear Agnes tell her family about the awful children and the anecdote one after another of the children and hearing their reactions to it, rather than getting the exposition info dump, introduction, and full explanation of her wards as actually happened in the book. I think this was a missed opportunity to give us some relief from the awfulness of her situation situation, also show her the love and affection with her family, and get all of the information on her wards in a more entertaining way. There is also a romance plotline in here. I'm not going to speak very much more about it, but I just wanted to say it was unbelievable to me, undeveloped, and I didn't care. So this is definitely a bummer, and this is the dud Brontë for me. I gave this 2 out of 5 stars because it wasn't a bad book, but it was no way near the level of the other Brontë books that I've given 3 stars. I think that might be only The Professor, come to think of it. Oh, and Villette. So, this definitely does not have nearly as much to sink your teeth into, even as Charlotte's first book. And frankly, knowing that Agnes Grey was published over The Professor astounds me. The Professor has its flaws and isn't the most engaging thing ever, but it at least has interesting, nuanced characters, and I don't know why it wasn't published. So, kind of wish that I could have ended the Brontë binge, at least videos of the novels, on a better note, but I didn't expect to have such strong feelings for Agnes Grey, especially strong feelings in the negative. If you have read Agnes Grey and you enjoyed it more than me, please tell me how I interpreted it in a way that did not set me up for success, but I really, really wanted to enjoy Agnes Grey, and I just couldn't, no matter how I tried. So that's the 7 Brontë novels. I am pretty stoked, and I'm actually not sad at all that I have read all of the Brontë novels now and I have no new Brontë novels to read, because if there's one thing that I've discovered about most, at least, of the Brontë novels is that they are so rereadable and you can get so much more out of them the second, third, even the 4th or 5th time that you are reading them, and you will have a slightly different, or at least I have a slightly different relationship with Jane Eyre every time I reread it, and with Villette every time I reread it, and I'm really excited to reread Shirley someday and see if it truly stands the tests of time and is my favorite classic of all time. Thank you for watching, and until next time, read a Brontë novel, maybe not Agnes Grey, and continue to be lovely.